This program is brought to you as a public service by Maui Causes. Maui Causes is a crowd-funded media production group that provides media production services to a variety of environmental and progressive causes here in Maui County. Visit us on the web at www.mauicauses.org. Welcome to another edition of Maui Causes. Hi, I'm Sam Small. Eternal thanks to Todd Swan in the studio control room and to Akaku, our community cable access channel, public information, free, for you to be able to create your own show. You can take courses, your kids can learn a trade, your kids can be journalists. They've got a wonderful program where you just take an iPhone and outfit an iPhone, and your kid can go out and start creating their own independent journalism. What a fantastic asset to this community. And no wonder the powers that be have been trying to shut this place down for decades, because they don't want you having an independent voice. That's basically how they protect their system. And so this show is dedicated to be a positive disruption of that existing system. If you're new here, you might think that Hawaii is just like any other state in the United States. And if you're here long enough, you will begin to realize in no way, shape, or form is Hawaii like any other United state. There is unique stuff going on here. And you as a citizen owe it to yourself and to your kids, if you're thinking of living here long term, to stick your nose into what's going on here in Maui in particular. It's easy to do because it's a small island. You can actually get involved and have an impact, which is a fascinating thing. And it's one of the most interesting aspects of doing this show. I think we're up to 86 episodes of Maui Causes, interviewing so many of the candidates that have run for office, all of the candidates running for office who have an open mind have appeared on this show. None of the candidates who are facilitating A and B and the other companies that have a stranglehold on Maui County, none of those candidates have had the balls to come on this show. They're all invited. Anybody can come on, but they don't. They won't do this because they're not telling you the truth. It's just really that simple. You are being lied to. Our system is rigged. It is manipulated, and we have a chance now, to flip that around. And your participation in that process is vital. You just need to educate yourself and go beyond what is printed in the Maui News. That manipulation, their manipulation of what took place in this last electoral process was absolutely just disgusting. A clear politically motivated attack on Alika Atai, a clear politically motivated attack on Trinette Furtado, specifically to brainwash you, to get them out. And they were successful. Neither of those candidates were able to come back. This time, they're not going away, folks. This movement, this change, is not going away. This program is a direct result of the Shaka movement. That was a community-based initiative in 2014 that went up against Monsanto and tried to protect your rights to understand what chemicals are being sprayed in open field experiments upwind from where you and your kids live. That's what the GM moratorium was about. It was really about the pesticides exposure that you have to suffer. And they fought that tooth and nail. $12 million Monsanto spent in Maui County fighting this community for us to be able to assert our rights. And those political forces are still at play. They're still undercutting our movement. There's so many issues And we will continue on Maui Causes to bring you as many diverse opinions and issues as we possibly can. Check out mauicauses.org and find us on Facebook as well. So, one of the continuing needs in this community and evolving thing that is happening here in Hawaii is your access, the community's access to cannabis as a medicine. It is, really firmly established at this point that there is medical value to this stuff. The pharmaceutical companies are all in a power play to try and take over cannabis, hemp, and THC. CBDs and THC, they're different things, and we can get into that a little bit. That is a power play that's taking place on a federal level, and it's also taking place here on a local level. And one of the pioneers here in our local community around cannabis and your access to cannabis as medicine is Brian Murphy. Brian, thank you.
Aloha, Sam. Good to see you.
You too.
Yeah.
Brian Murphy started years ago an organization called Patients Without Time and was very active for many years in making medicine available to people who really need it, people with really painful cancers and other post-traumatic stress issues with veterans. There's a lot of applications for cannabis, THC, and CBD. They're different things, different remedies. But there's a lot of need for that, and it is an evolving process.
Yes, it is. I'm quite happy with how the light has been shined on the medical aspects of cannabis. When I started out, it was basically a very dark area we were working in. And as the light is shined on it, more people have come to realize what a good medicine it is for many people.
It really does work.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right now, I'm really happy to announce that on August 24th of this year, Judge Cordoza ended my probation. Since the arrest in 2008, when we were running Patients Without Time, I've had this legal cloud hanging over my head the whole time because I was on probation and had to deal with all those things.
Well, one of our earliest initiatives here on Maui Causes was Free Brian Murphy.
Thank you. Took a while, but I'm free.
It took a while. And there was a reason, you were providing medicine for, patients who had legitimate medical needs, and they went after you.
They actually went after me with a vengeance, and it was a sad scenario because part of my big legal battle, they would not allow me to bring up medical marijuana as part of my defense, which is a hard thing to deal with when that is the reason you're there. People, I don't know if they realize, the Maui police arrested me away from my home. We actually had Patients Without Time in Paia, Hawaii, where we had a storefront for the patients to come in, and we were keeping as legitimate as possible for the previous 4 years. What they ended up doing was they arrested me away from my location and tried to get me involved with some thuggy type people, Mr. Robert Armitage, where we could do a little video for your show. I have the video of me being strong-armed by these people that they said I worked with, which I found interesting. But they tried to put me in a situation where—
to paint you as something, as a drug pusher.
Well, if you looked at the front page of the news, we were organized drug crime as far as they were concerned.
I know you. You're not organized.
Oh, far from.
Thank you.
But the whole undermining the reality of the situation of what I was dealing with, we went to court for, I think it was over 6 years. I did get sentenced to 1 year in jail. I went here to MCCC, which could be a whole nother show if you ever want to discuss the realities.
And your incarceration, what I saw, take place, because when they incarcerated you, they also withdrew your access to the medicine that you yourself, as a veteran, take to help maintain your own equilibrium. Right. And you got really out of balance in prison.
I got real sick in prison, and it took quite a long time to recover. They refused to give me anything for my pain management except for a drug called gabapentin.
Ooh, nasty stuff.
Gabapentin is a drug that makes your brain think that you're not in pain. It's a real weird drug, how it works on you physically. And it was quite devastating to me when I was in jail, having that as my only form of medication. But luckily, by the efforts of Sam and the Save Brian movement. I got out of jail. It was 6 months earlier.
And Mary,
I had to.
I mean, there were...
Well, Mary Whispering Wind, I can't say enough of
what
what
angel.
she's done for me.
Yep.
But the reality of the situation is that truth, facts, and justice never came into play.
No.
It was manipulation, put you in a corner so you get stuck where if you get out of this box, you're going to get burnt.
Right.
And for the last 8 years, that's actually kept me quite quiet on these issues, as in, you know, I had this cloud over my head while on probation where I could, if I would have gotten arrested, you go right back to jail. There is no bail while you wait to go on the charges you're going with.
Right, and you know, to tell people, you know, how politically motivated, you know, this whole thing was. The timing, as Brian said, you know, he was in business in a storefront in Paia, not hiding anything about what you were doing. But we were just moving into the process of laying out the new laws that would allow these medical marijuana dispensaries to be created here in Hawaii. And the timing of Brian's arrest, I submit, was specific to that process, because when he was arrested, he could no longer participate in developing the legislation that would create a balanced program that really benefits the people's best interests, not specific financial interests. And what we have today, this new dispensary system, in many different ways, that we'll get into some of them here today, many different ways, our existing new system is totally geared towards people making profits, not to the benefit of the actual patients, and that's a problem.
Well, that's the part, one of the parts that really encouraged me to, and again, Patients Without Time is going to be up and running on December 1st, 2018. We have all our paperwork in order, and we're taking a different approach this time than we did the last time. What I've been dealing with over the last couple years of listening to patients and getting feedback is how the whole system that they've created, when we had Patients Without Time, we actually had a sliding scale. When people came in and needed their medicine, they never left that office without medicine. The new system is set up where the majority, I'm going to say over 80% of the people in Maui cannot afford the prices that are at the dispensaries. It's all about just making money.
Expensive. Well, the dispensaries really have been set up to distribute recreational pot to tourists.
Basically, that's their whole system in the end, and it really saddens me because of the reality of the medical aspect of cannabis is quite beneficial to many people. And one of the things I wanted to bring up was, early on we developed a product called the vaporizer, and basically our design was where we heated the oil up and you pull off the different vapors at different levels, you get different results from it.
And the primary difference is that this is not smoking. You're not talking about burning anything. You know, whenever you burn something, you get smoke. So there's carcinogens in smoke. If you are working with a doctor and your doctor is not telling you you should not smoke your marijuana.
Well, I'm going to stop you right here. The whole system is a scam. Because when you go to a doctor, you have to pay him $150 for him to give you his signature. He gives you no other information, no other guidelines. You can now legally use marijuana. We have a group of doctors out here, that's all they do. Their whole business is signing their name for $150 to allow someone to use the medical marijuana. Mm-hmm. I find this totally, utterly wrong. The interesting thing about cannabis that a lot of people miss is there's this thing called the endocannabinoid system. In your body, you have receptors already built in all the way down to it gives the balance for, sorry.
That's all right. The limbic system, and your entire...
it's for keeping a balance in your body. Uh-huh. It basically keeps everything functioning.
Yeah.
And
this is research that we've talked about it before on the show. This is research out of Israel that have identified these specific receptors in our system for CBDs, which is a non-hallucinogen, non-psychoactive aspect of cannabis and hemp, and as well for THC. Our bodies we're hardwired to consume this stuff. That I always drop back to the calling it's like broccoli.
Right.
If you don't eat your carrots, if you don't eat your broccoli, you have a problem. You're in a deficiency, and that's what the Israelis are telling us, is that our entire society, because cannabis and hemp were removed from our society in the 30s through this insane stuff of reefer madness, which generated by the oil companies, by the cotton industry and paper industries, to remove hemp, which was the primary source since the dawn of civilization. It was part of our food supply. People ate hemp. Your chickens should be eating hemp seeds, because then the eggs that you get to eat of your chickens have these ingredients in the egg. Your chickens should be eating hemp seed. We should be growing hemp seed everywhere.
Well, if you look at the latest research out of Spain and Israel, the majority of the population are dealing with an endocannabinoid deficiency. And this here is really interesting because it branches out into other concerns I have, as in, I want to just regress 1 second about how cannabis works. Again, we discussed the endocannabinoid system. Well, there's another aspect of cannabis that should really be addressed, and it's called the entourage effect. People wonder why this miracle plant, this miracle drug's been here all these years. Why has no pharmaceutical company latched onto it and run with this as a product?
Individual active ingredients.
Thank you. Our system is set up where they have to be able to pull one thing out, register, patent it, then it's patent medicine, it moves on.
Right.
When it actually comes to cannabis, that doesn't apply for some reason as far as the government or the state is concerned.
No, but that's how the FDA and the EPA work also, because they do the exact same thing with heavy chemicals in the agricultural industry. They only are interested in one particular active ingredient, and they don't acknowledge that these things actually have an interactive effect on your body.
Right.
The EPA says that you can be exposed to a chemical pesticide that it's got an impact on your liver. And it's okay that if there was another pesticide that also impacted your liver, then they would say, oh, you can't be exposed to those things simultaneously.
Right.
But if the second active ingredient, pesticide or herbicide that they're willing to let you be exposed affects your pancreas and not your liver, hey, no problem. It's a separate, it's a different organ. We don't care. We're not going to regulate or consider those things in conjunction. That's what the GM moratorium in Maui was designed to expose and protect you from. That's why we bring it up. And it's the exact same kind of fake science that you're dealing with here with cannabinoids.
Now, again, back to the endocannabinoid system and the entourage effect. They did develop a drug called Marinol early on, which was basically they pulled the THC out and said, oh, here we got it.
Right.
Here's your drug. Doesn't work well. Totally insufficient for your needs most often. The administration takes
harsh, just
nothing but problems because technically it didn't work. But we live in a society where it's all about the money. And patients for that time, we were always all about the health issues. Now, the reason I keep bringing this entourage effect is just to educate the population that no, you cannot pull one of the cannabinoids out and have it work on you as it is designed to work when it's mixed with all the other cannabinoids. THC, CBN, CBD, all play part in this progression of as in how THC works or how CBD works. The reason I'm bringing this up is a lot of you will see these available pens and stuff all over the place that say 100% CBD oil. That'll guarantee it won't work. Now, you will get a feeling off it because you're dealing with a cannabinoid deficiency, just like if you were dealing with a vitamin C deficiency and you smelled an orange, it would smell like the best orange in the world.
Right.
Because your body needed it. But what our system is all based on is the economics. The reason I'm focusing on the CBD one was early on you saw ads in the paper where available in 50 states, legal everywhere, and this was industrial hemp imported from China. Now, the interesting part about this is a hexane extracted product. Hexane is a nasty substance that you don't want anything to deal with. No. But they were playing off of Charlotte's Web. Myself being an epileptic, I know quite about this, turned out to be a group of cannabinoids that worked really well with children dealing with epilepsy. And it was mainly CBD which was the one that was triggering this. But it had THC in there, it had CBD in there, it had CBN in there. They didn't just pull it out.
Had the full spectrum.
You have to have the full spectrum for the full effect.
Right.
But unfortunately, we live in a very greedy and money-orientated society where none of that matters if someone's making money. And back to these pens. Just be aware of the products that you're buying on the market out there. It may sound good, it may have a nice promotion, it may even seem convenient, but it doesn't really work for what you're looking for from a health standpoint.
So, so from an overall health standpoint, really what's called for is the total legalization of both cannabis and hemp so that people can grow it and consume it on their own without limitations, that people can have this stuff as a food product and not have to go through any of these gyrations that are the pharmaceutical companies trying to make money off of it as a product and trying to control it as an entire industry. And then even this, crazy system that has been worked up here in Hawaii to create the dispensaries, also with the primary imperative of making money, not really serving the public's best interest. So ultimately, legalization of both really kind of is the ultimate solution, isn't it?
I think that is actually the ultimate answer for the state of Hawaii for many reasons. First of all, what are the dangers? Right now, we have over 14,000 medical marijuana patients growing marijuana all over these islands. I don't see a big problem. For the past 20 years, the number went down a little, has increased over these years, but there's never been a problem from that happening. But yet they create this air around it's so dangerous.
Yes.
It's so freaking dangerous.
Oh my God.
We only can do it, you can't do it.
Right.
It's so dangerous, we're taking over and only our friend can do it now that we think about it. And what they're trying to do is make it big business and it's all about the money. One of the things we did at Patients Without Time, our goal was to help patients. The whole process for using cannabis is not being addressed medically at all at any of these dispensaries. I find it fascinating when you go into, I only go into the Maui grown ones so far, and you want to see the cannabis available, you're not allowed to smell it, which I find fascinating because all the research I've done and all the research I've read, one of the best ways for a patient to determine which strain is best for them is through aromatherapy. And what it is, when we ran Patients Without Time, I'd get 4 or 5 varieties, very different each one. A patient would come in and smell this, Sam, what do you think? And before you know it, you know what? This is the one I like.
Right, it smells the best to me. Because your body intuitively knows, you respond to that.
Thank you. Every time, all the time, that patient got a good product and had excellent results immediately.
Right.
People who are just having to get what's available and stuff, they sometimes good, sometimes bad, but it was floating. The way they have the system, and Maui Grown's run by doctors, they don't even interview or sit down with the patient. It's all about just selling your pot.
You can't
making money on pot.
They won't allow you to smell the product?
No, matter of fact, I couldn't even see it the time I went. You had to buy it blindly. They gave you the name and it came in a little jar. And when you went home, you got to see what it was.
Why can't you smell the product? That's insane.
The whole system's insane, Sam. That's why. The whole system, again, where's the damage? Where's the danger? Let's just jump over to hemp for a moment. So here again, in the state of Hawaii, they're trying to create it where only the special chosen few may go forward with this project because it's so dangerous again. We can't let this out.
Saying, right.
Yeah, but the facts show it's not true.
Well, absolutely.
So here I'm dealing with a situation where they have established lies that are accepted. Mm-hmm. We have alternative facts here. Their facts right now are the ones we go with, even though they're not true.
And it's a process, and so in the imbalanced system that was created to facilitate licenses to grow hemp, we actually do have hemp growing on Maui today. So, that is a significant advancement from where we were 2 years ago.
I'm going to stop you right here, though, because the one thing that
it will continue to evolve
Right.
into a better system. But
Right.
the stuff is being grown here on Maui.
One of the most annoying things I ran into over all these years, and has been really bothering me the time that I haven't been able to speak out. I just lost my chain of thought.
It's all right. We're starting to talk about hemp.
Oh, hemp. When it comes to hemp, there's an edition of Popular Mechanics dated 1933. Take a moment, pick it up, and read it. It explains the over 10,000 uses of hemp.
In 1933.
And this is in 1933 without all
Before
new
you could process
technologies.
and- that's
we didn't
right.
have a decorticator back then, so things have really developed along the lines.
Sure.
One of the projects that we're going to be working on at Patients Without Time this year is a program called Cannabis. What would be the economic situation in Hawaii if we just made these products available? It's amazing the amount of jobs it'll create.
Sure.
It's amazing the independence we will get from so many different areas of products that we need. Don't forget, 98%, I'm going to say it again, 98% of our products are imported. We make 2%. Think of all these people trying to scrape up and just use the 2%. It ain't going to go well. We really need to work on that. But back to the Patients Without Time Cannabis program, what we decided, and we're sitting down, is investigating all the different aspects of hemp, recreational use, and medical use. So far, we determined that we would create a program where it would be set up along the lines of the Tobacco Allotment Act, where we would decide, okay, we're going to need X amount of medical marijuana this year, we're going to need X amount of recreational marijuana this year, and the county then would create an allotment program, and I would elect that it would be to only farmers that were participating, and the part of the request would be that to acquire this allotment to have what was technically called a cash crop, marijuana or cannabis, you have to produce another food crop for the island.
Food crop, and that is essential, because that is how we create a more balanced environment and a more balanced agricultural economy, is that you can have a license and have the right to grow cannabis and or hemp, but you also need to, as part of your operation, be growing food.
Right. One of the latest one that's been really annoying me on the agriculturally zoned land is some clown down by McKenna Landing has his 30 acres. He built his $2 million home, and now he's trying to keep his agricultural zoning because he's growing willy trees to feed the deer. Do you know that deer don't eat willy trees?
Well, that's bizarre.
But this is what we're dealing with, and again, I'd like to see an agricultural group controlling, are they really ag? Or if they're not ag, if you want to build $1 million mansion, fine, pay the $1 million tax for that bracket. Do not come in here and tell me your 2 banana trees make you an agriculturally zoned farm.
Right.
Which is what's going on here.
How can willy trees, willies were basically eradicated by the gull wasps. They destroyed all the willy trees.
I'm going to ask you not to pull logic or common sense on me on these questions.
One would think that if you try and bring the the wasps are still here. They've moved on to other trees, and they've killed all the willies, as far as I know. If anybody knows any different, please correct me. But that's a bizarre stuff. Let me just pause just a second. We're going to come back in just a minute.
There's more to our show in just a moment. This program is brought to you as a public service by Maui Causes. Maui Causes is a crowd-funded media production group that provides media production services to a variety of environmental and progressive causes here in Maui County. Visit us on the web at www.mauicauses.org.
Welcome back to Maui Causes. With me here is Brian Murphy, who is the creator of Patients Without Time.
Well, as I said, we're kicking off on December 1st. Again, the feedback that I've been getting from the community is the majority of the patients can't afford to be able to.
The dispensaries are expensive.
Dispensaries are ridiculously high.
They're not. If the dispensaries are not offering edibles, if they're not offering people a way to consume these products where they don't have to smoke, no doctor should ever be advocating to any patient that they actually smoke this stuff. It's bad for your lungs. There's stuff in smoke. The vaporizing system that you talked about heats the cannabis, and it begins to outgas. These are you know.
It's even a little bit more
oils.
More specific than that.
You're the expert. Go.
What happens is when you heat up cannabis oil, the vaporizer actually works along the lines of a cracker, and what a petroleum cracker. And what a cracker is, they heat up oil, and at different temperatures you pull off different vapors to produce different products. Is how a cracker works.
Which is, you get kerosene, or you get turpentine.
All these things
or gasoline. These are different layers of gas that are pulled out of an oil.
Right. And now with the cannabis one, we had designed early on, and all the earlier vaporizers are full spectrum, where they evaporate all the cannabinoids, as in from the low end to the high end.
All at once.
Continuously. You're getting a little bit of each at all time because it's a full body oil. One of the things that have really been annoying me now is these new vapor pens you see everywhere, and they're these little pens with a little device on the bottom. You can buy one at the Maui grown. It's 64% of THC, THC, and CBD. But they don't tell you what the other 30-some% is, and that's a product called glycerin. One of the problems with, or one of the issues that you have to deal with when you're doing full spectrum oil is the viscosity for it to be able to work in a little device like that. But also with these little devices, it only has a small window of temperature. I find it fascinating when I see people, oh, how did you like your vape pen? Oh, it was really good, and yeah, I felt like smoking a joint at the end.
Yeah, right.
Because you're not getting all
short-lived.
Short-lived, and you're not quite getting what you want because you're only getting a little bit of heat, only evaporating a little section of that.
And each one of those temperature zones triggers the release of a different combination. There's lots of little, you know, it's more than, it's not just one ingredient. There's lots of terpenes.
There's 60-some cannabinoids alone.
Right. So,
never mind the terpenes, which are, and I'm so happy they're now starting to realize that the terpenes are a major factor also in the medical properties of cannabis, but this gets back to the entourage effect.
Right.
For this product to work, you need them all present in some degree in some point. One of the research projects we had at Patients Without Time early on was vaporizing at different temperatures.
Right.
And it was interesting, the MS patients preferred a lighter color when it was finished.
Muscular sclerosis.
Right. And then when we got all the way down to the pain management, that was a very dark brown ash. And
for pain management for cancer patients.
So in between there was all these other ailments, and we were trying to determine on what zone to be able to show people. On the vaporizers that we designed, and a lot of the vaporizers, no, not a lot of the vaporizers on the market anymore, they were designed for full spectrum heat, where the heat would totally evaporate everything on. And when we started out, we were using the actual flower ground up and just vaporizing the gas off the outside of it. Since then, things have come along quite well. We do a full body extraction. It's 140 proof alcohol extraction when we make our oil. And then we started working with just the oil. And
so the benzenes and the heavy chemicals, there's none of that is going on.
None.
You know, those chemical extraction systems leave a residual chemical in the oil. Benzenes, carbon rings, it's absolutely cancer-forming stuff in and of itself. You don't want any of those products.
And here's a little sideline too: is when you smoke or combust cannabis, it smells. And what it is, you produce a carbon, and it's a heavy carbon that actually sticks to your clothes, is why it smells. When you use a vaporizer, when I exhale, unless you walked into that vapor, you would never smell it because we don't produce that heavy carbon aspect of it. And as Sam was saying, the arsenic and all the other stuff that come along with smoking, the key component here is how come there's not medical efficacy on the use of cannabis. It's just all about the money when you go to any of these organizations. They're just trying to make money off it. What works or doesn't work really doesn't come into play with a lot of them. What can we make to sell seems to be the main question.
Right, which is, you know, just to back up from the beginning of this conversation, which is exactly why Brian was incarcerated for several years, because they were in the midst of developing this program. It was just coming, you know, just starting out down the road. And they didn't want this guy, they didn't want you participating in that process because of the things that you're saying. They wanted to develop a system where they could maximize their profits and not really, you know, care about meeting the needs of the of the public. They were just looking to make money, and they put you in jail to facilitate that.
This is true. One of the things that we're kicking off at Patients Without Time is I'm going to get back on to giving seminars on how to grow your cannabis yourself, how to refine it, how to dry it, how to make different products, edibles, oils, and things of this nature, because the majority of my friends on Maui cannot afford to go to these dispensaries. And the reality of the situation, they need the product.
Right.
So with that announcement, Patients Without Time goal is to try and make every patient as independent as possible. We have a few humps we still have to get over, as in, where did the plants come from? It's take the time and call the health department sometime. It's almost humorous how they make believe they just appear. And that's legal.
By magic.
By magic. It comes out of the black box, they call it. Oh, that's in the black box. We don't have to talk about that. But that's the things I want to talk about. Everything they don't want to discuss, we're going to be discussing at Patients Without Time. And the whole idea that the patients can afford the remedy is totally wrong out the gate when we can make it affordable for all patients if we wanted to do that.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. The ability is there. It's just a matter of having the political will to buck the system to actually make it so.
And back to what I was early announcing, December 1st, we're kicking Patients Without Time back off.
How do people reach you?
Right now, it'd just be through the internet at information@patientswithouttime.com or org. Either one, I think we have both still.
Info at Patients Without Time.
At Patients Without Time at the moment. Over the month of December, we're going to complete our Cannanomics program to come up with a program we feel the state of Hawaii should address going forward with industrial, adult, and medical use of cannabis. All three need to be intertwined because of different growing aspects of the different products, so that each industry is protected from the other. Again, the pollen issues and things of this nature.
All of that is manageable.
Yeah, again, if you do it all at once, you can then incorporate all these things into the program.
Right.
And
the Hemp Research Institute, the Maui Hemp Research Institute for Research and Development, is approaching these issues from the hemp side to be able to meet in the middle and figure out how best to serve the public's needs and the agricultural needs here in Maui County to be able to grow cannabis and hemp side by side and not have a negative impact on any of it. And it's doable.
Yes, we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry for the state of Hawaii. If properly orchestrated. We could actually turn our tourism into green tourism by part of what I would see introduced in this program is all three of those groups, the industrial, adult, and medical. When you're producing those products, you have to be producing an agricultural product too, a food crop of some sort. By doing this, we create an economic base for our farmers to succeed. As I said earlier, we got the millionaires growing their willy trees for the deer. The big estates with, we have 2 avocado and a mango, so we're agricultural too. They're not paying their dues and they're not meeting any community aspect of what agriculture is supposed to really be about. And the whole idea is to reformulate the whole program. There's so much hypocrisy in the whole cannabis issue. And I'm just going to bring up, okay, the tourists come in. A tourist comes in, they get their prescription, they go to the dispensary, they're allowed to buy their medical cannabis. Where are they allowed to consume it? It is totally illegal in the state of Hawaii to smoke in any rental room. If you rent out a room, you're not allowed to allow smoking of tobacco, marijuana, or anything in there because it's illegal in the state of Hawaii.
And that would include even the vaporizer.
Everything.
Everything. So you can't even vape in a hotel room.
Well, because of the clowns with their new vapes, with the big puffs of smoke, you see all the glyphosate or the, what is it called?
Glycine. I was going to say glycine.
Yeah, I get caught between the other one with the growing stuff
Right.
that they were spraying. But anyway, those big puffs or cloud, basically people are going to be dealing with a thing called popcorn lung from that over time. But those two, they've slid now in, you can't vape in the rooms either.
Right.
So they threw vape in there, but that's not the same vape I'm talking about. It's a different vape.
Oh.
But they don't address these issues. The weird part is, with the tobacco ones you see with the big puffs of smoke, I don't know if you ever walk through them, it smells like cotton candy or lemonade or whatever when you're going through. And yeah, you smoke them in the room, the whole room's going to smell like that for hours.
Right.
The interesting thing, back to correctly using a vaporizer for the consumption of cannabis, you do not produce those heavy carbons. Technically and legally, they would never know you, or they would just never know you smoked in that room because you don't produce the heavy carbon.
Right.
So there is a way for them to do it, but in our current legal situation, none of this is addressed. It just states that you're not allowed to smoke any substance. A condominium association can get it to the point where you're not even allowed to smoke in your condo. You can go outside and smoke if you really got to smoke. It's that strong of a law in the state of Hawaii. Problem though, you're not allowed to smoke cannabis in public anywhere in the state of Hawaii. So
you can't smoke on the sidewalk, and you can't go for a walk,
Can't go to the beach.
you can't go to the beach.
Can't smoke in your room.
Can't smoke in your
So
room.
technically,
So how is it the dispensaries is selling marijuana to tourists to smoke, and there's no place for them to legally actually smoke it?
how it is they're making money at it, and that's all that matters.
Right.
But this was one thing they didn't think about, I guess. And again, by not bringing in the cannabis community, everybody who makes our decisions have no idea about cannabis. One of the little quirks that got me, one of my nemesis was a guy named Keith Kamita. He used to be the head of the Narcotics Enforcement Division. Terrible group of people, how they dealt with me. He is now running a medical marijuana security company in Oahu.
Not surprising.
So let me understand it. If anyone who's ever been involved and understands the issue, we're banned. I'm banned from it. Matter of fact, it was Senator Roz Baker. I was at one of the dispensary meetings over in Oahu a couple years ago. I wanted to do a little testifying, ask some questions, and I was informed by her, since I was convicted felon, I was not even allowed to participate in the discussion.
You couldn't even testify.
No.
Hey, that's bullshit.
Oh, I know it's bullshit, but the whole thing is bullshit, is all I'm trying to bring up here. And what my question to the people here is, why do we got to go along with their version of reality when it's not based on fact? Why can't our decision be based on facts? And when it comes to this cannabis issue, economic benefits for the state of Hawaii, the ability to create an industry that would actually bring people back from the mainland who had to leave because of economics. Now, when you do get to see our Cannonomics, one of the early things we put in our whole proposal is, the first thing is to create a residency requirement for the state of Hawaii, where you have to live here for 5 years minimum before you're considered a resident of the state of Hawaii. And we would like to see all the cannabis regulations created for all the different industries where you have to be a resident to go forward. So all of a sudden, we are creating jobs for people here. The interesting thing, go to the dispensary right now and see where most of the people came here to work at the dispensary. We might have created 3 jobs, 4 jobs, maybe at that. Well, that's what we should be looking at. Also in our residency requirement, we put in a longevity clause where if you could show that you lived here for over 10 years, you could come back and be a resident immediately. This is for all our Ohana that had to move to the mainland for economic reasons, but would really prefer to live here, to get them into our job pool. We go forward with our medical marijuana program and our industrial program and our adult use program, the way I envision it, we're creating tens of thousands of jobs.
Yeah.
But what we got to do is make sure we create them for Hawaiians first. Us first. It sounds a little self-centered, but I'm sorry, that's just the way I am on this particular subject. And I've met quite a few different Ohanas on the island when we've discussed this whole Tobacco Allotment Act and allowing agricultural zone people to get involved in producing the food, when I brought up the residential or the residency requirement, two different ladies had tears in their eyes that, oh, this means my son could come back.
Right.
My kids could move back here and have a way of going forward.
Right.
But we have to think Hawaii first. So.
And there may be a way to do that. You know, residency requirements are a difficult thing, but because you're talking about a new attachment to a residency requirement, there might be a chance. Residency requirements for access to public services actually got locked in by the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. Hawaii does not have a residency requirement for access to public health services and other public services, mm-hmm. so that, you know, somebody just coming off the plane, and that's why we get a lot of indigenous that come from other places. They're given a ticket, here, get out of Santa Clara, California. We don't want you here. Here's a ticket to Maui, and you get off the plane and go knock yourself out on Maui, because mm-hmm. there is no residency requirement, and the Supreme Court blocks us from establishing a residency requirement for those public services. There was a Supreme Court decision that locked in all the states, and no state can change their existing residency requirement to something more conservative.
Right.
And so Hawaii, being the generous culture that it was at the time, we didn't have a residency requirement, and we cannot create one today for those public services. We're locked in.
The research that we did, you're right on the public service aspect of it, but things of acquiring a driver's license, right. voting in the state, things of that nature, we can.
We can control.
And all we're talking about is to be able to qualify for any of these industries, we want you to be a resident first. Right. Right. It doesn't affect any of that. You get off the plane, you need to go to the no, everything would still apply, but it would give us the ability to give the economic benefit to the people that need it, or the people that are here now.
How much of these issues can be dealt with as Maui County as opposed to Hawaii State?
It depends on who you ask, and it depends on what your issue is too, which is rather interesting how this all goes forward.
What could we do on the state, on the county basis?
On a county basis, we can create regulations and issues dealing with a lot of the aspects alongside of cannabis, but not the general rules. As in this specific one of where our tourists are allowed to consume it. It's a wide open play. No one's ever dealt with that. They just said, okay, you can have reciprocity, and oh, where are they going to smoke? So that's why the reciprocity really hasn't gone anywhere yet.
Reciprocity is that if you've got a card from Colorado that allows you to purchase legally medical marijuana in Colorado, reciprocity allows you to purchase that same product here in Hawaii.
After you pay for your Hawaii's license. That's one of the holdups. They want you to be able to get a license. Now, these things are really interesting because we as residents actually are second-class citizens even in the cannabis industry, and I'll give you an example. Me as a patient here in Hawaii, I can grow and I can have 4 ounces. Sam comes to visit, or Sam's here and he wants to go to the dispensary and buy it, he can have 8. So you're allowed to have twice as much as I'm allowed if you buy it from them.
Oh, that's convenient for them.
Isn't it now? But again, there's a lot of things that just are kapakai in this whole situation. And I think one of the reasons are it was totally developed by people who have no concept of how it works or how it does, but it sounded good for money and lots of people sell it and lots of people buy it. That's all they were looking at. Right. Well, it really would be nice to change it to where Hawaii was in the forefront of creating these medical procedures, medical protocols for different ailments, for different consumptions of this product would be quite beneficial for our residents. And eventually, I would envision that Hawaii would be a major exporter of cannabis. Okay, so first, we're jumping all over here, but first rule we would do would be a residency requirement if I was king of the world. So we have that done. The second thing that we would do at that point would to create a program, and I would do it through the University of Hawaii, where all growers here in the state of Hawaii would be able to pool their genetics through the University of Hawaii and create Hawaii strains of cannabis. And we're just going to pick one out, and we'll go with Maui Dream. It's a local Blue Dream variety cannabis that's really good. And now if we go to the university and, okay, here's our genetic bank at the university, I would even take it the next step. I would actually do tissue culture overseas, but that's just getting a little technical. The reason I'm talking about this, one of the big problems on the mainland is I go to Sonoma County, I want to smoke my Maui Dream, I buy it there. I go to San Francisco, I want the Maui Dream, I buy it again. It's different. They're all different. For interstate transportation or interstate manufacturing of product, we have to have consistency in formulation where there is no variation. If Hawaii was Akamai, we create our genetic bank where the patients, the medical organizations, and the adult use people all are working off the same bank. It's the same product.
And that would be through a cloning system. You wouldn't even be dealing with seeds at that point. You would be dealing with tissue cloning.
Yeah, well, through the University of Hawaii, I think we would need to create a program where through tissue culture you would be able to get the specific strain you were looking for.
Right.
And the reason I bring this up, because I'm looking at eventually Hawaii being a major exporter of cannabis.
Right.
We have worldwide name recognition. I don't care where in the world you go, what language they speak, you go, Maui Wowie. They know you mean the best pot in the world.
Well, and you know, it's the reason that there is such a concentration of agricultural research firms here in Hawaii is because of our accelerated growing season.
Exactly.
I mean, this goes back to you know, decades ago, where Brubaker, the economist crazy that he is, his dad was involved in with the ag department and essentially courted seed companies from the mainland. There were lots of small seed companies. Used to be this little boutique thing before it was all consolidated, owned by, you know, Pioneer and Bayer and Monsanto and Dow. All those seed companies have been bought up. There used to be hundreds of small little boutique seed companies that started to do research here because the additional growing seasons allows them to have additional generations of interbreeding and developing different varieties. That's a very valuable process in any agricultural product, and it's why those companies are so dominant here today. And you're talking about using, again, that aspect to this climate to its best advantage.
Now, we create our genetic bank is at the university, so everybody who's making products are dealing with the same genetic source. All of a sudden, Sam comes along and he makes Haleakala tincture. #1 tincture. Everybody wants Haleakala tincture. Other growers around the state could grow the same genetics to produce the product you need for your crop, since you don't have enough space to grow your own, per se, if the market takes off.
Right.
The whole idea of creating a standardization, none of the other states have done it. And right now, all you see are big people trying to create the one and only. Like everybody wants to be the Microsoft of pot. It's really interesting. No one can do it but me, you know. And there's so many varieties and strains, but right now that's a big undertaking on the mainland, is people trying to lock people out from using specific strains that are theirs. Right. Here in Hawaii, we would take it the other way, where the state of Hawaii would be the registered patent holders of the genetics for the state, and be able to disperse them to all the different people around the state, to where when needed, we would have consistency in product where our products could be exported almost immediately, compared to trying to go to the mainland, find some cannabis you like somewhere, create your product, try and do it again.
Right. Have a consistency of product. Right. And this is, you know, this is the complexity of these issues. And it's, you know, no one has an interest in saying, oh, it should, you know, necessarily be completely deregulated on an agricultural basis in terms of cash crops. You know, it's actually a very important thing. Decriminalization and legalization of people people being able to grow their own is a separate thing. You wouldn't be necessarily part of a commercial product system. But from a state agricultural system, what you're describing is a necessary thing, because there are all these varieties and they do have different attributes. And if you are creating a particular product, then you need to know that your source is consistent with the needs of that product.
Reproducible. You could reproduce that every time,
and
all
the
the time.
control of these, of the seed is a very important thing, obviously, because Steve Rose from the Hemp Research Institute, has been on the show before, and the only seed that was originally available to come into Hawaii, they mandated there was just one particular seed to come from China for hemp. That they were, writing licenses for anybody to grow, and they're doing their best to move the process along and open it up, because there are seed varieties from all over the world that could perhaps be much better for our particular climate than this one particular seed that somehow somebody got the authority and power to dictate that only this one variety could be brought here. There, probably a money connection, in there somewhere that made that happen. And we're tearing, that's what this is all about. Is yes, we've taken a couple of steps forward into this whole entire process, but we're not there yet.
Right.
And it's the work that you're doing in Patients Without Time, and that you are now, free to pursue yet again, because your probation has been lifted.
Right.
That we're able to move these issues along. Brian, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for all the good work that you've done for veterans, which I know is your first marketplace.
Well, we only touched the tip of the iceberg today.
We did. So
I
we'll
look forward to coming back and doing specialized versions of our interaction, and I look forward to doing specific shows on just specific topics around this.
Well, maybe we'll create a new show just for Patients Without Time.
Oh, how nice would that be?
Look for that on MauiCauses.org. We are here in your community to help educate you and your family. So please share us and join us again next week. Aloha.
Aloha.
This program is brought to you as a public service by Maui Causes. Maui Causes is a crowd-funded media production group that provides media production services to a variety of environmental and progressive causes here in Maui County. Visit us on the web at www.mauicauses.org.